Hello, I'm here a little early just to make sure all things are working well for our live video. Um, I also want to make sure that I can see it going on. So I'm just gonna get set up here, okay? And I want to make sure I can answer everybody's questions. So um, I'm probably gonna do that on my computer. Yay, it's live. Okay, cool. So Jennifer, you're here. Can you hear me? Give me like a thumbs up if you can. I want to make sure that I am loud and clear for everybody. I haven't done this on my phone very much, so just hang with me a second. I want to be able to see the chat. Do do do. Okay, great. Awesome. You can see me. Hooray. Okay, cool. So I'm going to kind of go back and forth to my computer so I can answer questions if I need to and then talk to you guys through here. So we have like 2 minutes and I'm just going to kind of get this gal sectioned up so I don't waste anybody's time. Um, and if you want to throw, I don't know how many people are going to join us. I think like 16 people said they were coming. So if you want to say like hello in the chat, where you're from, that's always kind of fun. I like to know that. I'm in Minnesota, where it's snowing again. I actually got sunburned earlier this week and then, brought back out my boots for the snow. Okay. But, I think that most people who live in Minnesota understand what comes with the territory. So we all keep out our boots and hats and mittens probably till May because you just never do know. So because of that, my mudroom is really, really full of stuff. But I think most people can relate who live in a colder state that gets lots of snow because you just never know what's going to happen. Okay, friends. Hello, Laura. I was just saying, if you want to say where you're from, you can, but you don't have to. But if you want to, you can. Okay, so we got like a little minute to go, and I'm just sectioning out the front here, so it's kind of in and out of my way as we work. And I'm hopefully going to be able to kind of maneuver around this beautiful mannequin head. This is Louisa from La Image. So if you're looking to get a new mannequin head, I really recommend this one. It's a good practice head. She's a little expensive. I think it's a couple $100, but it's a lot of hair. The hair is pretty durable. It can withhold a lot. And so that's really helpful as well. That it can hold a lot of product. It can hold a lot of kind of ripping through. And I don't even wash it that often. And it seems to be able to really hold up. So, okay, we are right at 7 o'clock. There's a couple people with us live. I'm going to keep this posted. And so if you got to go or if you hop in late, you can watch it at any time. And then I'm going to upload it to YouTube. So it will be on YouTube. So you guys, my goal for today is I'm just going to go over kind of my process and how I do an updo. I don't have a very specific updo. I have kind of a general idea in mind of what I want to teach you today based off a bridesmaid I had this weekend. And I thought it was a really fun look. And so I'm going to just kind of walk you through what I would do with the information that I have from pretending this is a bridesmaid that sat down in my chair and was kind of telling me what she wanted me to do with her hair for the wedding day. So I think one thing is that happens a lot is we watch videos, we watch tutorials, and we learn a very, very specific thing. And then we go ahead and we get onto the actual person and we're like, shoot, this doesn't really work super well for this person's hair type, whatever the reason may be. So I think it's better personally when you're learning updos and you're trying to grow in your craft to really have good, solid foundations and techniques. And when you have those, you can apply those to a lot of different updos and you can really use your creativity to kind of create your own thing using the foundations that I've used for a long time and that I'm going to talk about today. So you can see that her hair is kind of prepped. And the reason that she is prepped is because I'm doing a really textured updo, and it would have been a lot of wasted time to watch me texturize her whole head. So therefore, I prepped it all for you so I could just really get to the meat of what we're doing today and show you what I'm doing. But to give you a brief overview of what I did is I just used a wand, and this is 1 1/4 inch, and I went through section by section and I curled in every other direction. So basically I just took sections of hair, I wrapped it around and let it free. And I did this over the entire head. So I didn't do a super, super tight long hold because it's all going to be going up. And I moved rather quickly throughout because, like I said, we're putting it all up. So if I was doing the hair down and I wanted this look, I would do a different technique. But because we're pulling it all up, I'm not going to waste my time doing really perfect curls all the way through just to put them in a ponytail and kind of mess up what I just did. So that is step one. That is the texture that I created for this look because I want it to be really kind of beachy and loose and a little bit more free flowing. So that's number one. Number two, the products that I used was a flexible hold hairspray. I'm really passionate about Bedhead Masterpiece, which is kind of like an over-the-counter brand these days. But you know, back when I started using it, it wasn't. I love it. It smells really good, and I think it works really, really well. And then I finished all the curls with some texture spray. And so by layering the flexible hold hairspray plus the texture spray, you're going to get good texture in here. It's going to move how you want, and it's not going to get frizzy, and it's not going to be crunchy or stiff. So those are kind of the big things. You don't want crunchy, stiff. You want it to be able to move, but you don't want it to get messy, frizzy, right? So those are the two products that I used. Now, the third thing that I did was section the hair. So I am all about really clean sections. When you're working in sections and you know where you're going, when you have a map of the head, you're going to be much more successful in your updo, and you're not going to get lost in it. So I basically do kind of a similar section for like 90% of all updos that I do because it really helps me work clean and helps me know where I'm going and not get overwhelmed by the hair. So it is a top of the head to the top of the ear section. So that is the first. And so it's on this side and on this side. And then I section out a triangle, kind of a rounded triangle on the crown. So that is just right up here in the section. And I find that when I section these away, I have a lot of hair to work with at the end of my updo to really detail and kind of bring in something that is going to make it soft and work with the bride face to face so she can see what she's looking at. A lot of times when you bring in the front first and you start doing the back, then what ends up happening is you have to make adjustments and you're pulling from the front, and that's messing up the back of your updo. So I like to save this out because that way it gives me some wiggle room to detail and make the front really beautiful how the bride likes. So that's kind of my overview to get started. I know that's a lot of information. Feel free to ask questions at any time. I can kind of see them coming up as I'm teaching. I'm going to try to answer. And if for some reason I miss it, I will come back through every day or so for the next couple days and answer any questions that people are watching the replay. So feel free to come back and check the comment section to see if any questions that you found interesting maybe apply to you. Okay, guys. So this is going to be all up. The bridesmaid that I had this weekend, she said, look, I want my hair all up, but I don't want it to be tight or severe. She said, I want to be able to see a little bit from the front. So she wants to see when she looks straight on, she wants to see a little bit, but she doesn't want it to be too big. She wants it to be kind of like loose and soft and flowing. She showed me a lot of pictures of like French twists that were kind of messy high up buns. And then she let me just kind of use my creativity. So I'm going to show you what I did. And this hair texture here is super different than the one that I actually did. She had red hair with some blonde highlights. It's actually on my Instagram on 139 Hair by Heidi if you want to see that. But I'm going to show you what I did today on this lovely mannequin. So starting with the center, I know that I need to create a foundation. That is the first thing. And because she wants it higher up, I'm going to create the foundation right up here, close to the top of the head. Not right on top, but right underneath this section that I created here. So I'm going to take a fairly large section, leaving out around the edges. So I'm not taking all the way to the bottom. I'm going to be making 2 ponytails, one here, and those are going to be my foundations. So they don't have to be super, super clean because this is going to be kind of more of an undone, and this is going to be on the interior. So what I mean by that is the edges of this section are not going to be seen on the outside of the hair, so I don't have to be super careful with that. So I'm just going to use my fingers to kind of bring this up. And again, I don't have to be super, super serious about it because this is on the inside. Now she's got a lot of grip already to her hair because she's got a lot of product in it. She's a bleach blonde hair. And so I don't need to do any extra back combing. But if you're working with somebody here who's got really slippery virgin hair that's really beautiful and healthy, then I would recommend doing some back combing in this ponytail so that you have some nice grip to stick your pins into. So this foundation here, I'm going to make it a little bit loose. It's going to give you a great anchor to stick all your pins in. Okay, so you need to create that anchor if you don't already have it in the hair. Like I said, she's got lots of texture in here, so I know this is going to work well. Plus, I've done a little back combing in previous updos that I've styled on her, so I know it's going to be okay. But that virgin hair really needs to be messed up. So do a little back combing, do additional texture spray, get it really nice and grippy. Okay, I'm going to clip this up out of the way. So I'm just using a little pin curl clip to get that out of the way so I can make a second ponytail. So same thing down here. You can see that my curls down here are a lot weaker, and that's because this is really going to be wrapped up in my updo, and so I don't need to spend a lot of time, but I want to get a little bit of that texture in here. So that's why I went through and curled it first. So I'm leaving out hair along the edges, so I have some hair to work with. But the majority of this is going to come up into a ponytail. So this is going to be like all up. It's going to have a little bit of French twist vibes, but not exactly. It's going to be kind of like my own take on that. Okay, question. Let's see. I had a client that was doing Hollywood waves, and I set it, let it cool the hair. When I dropped the set, there was zero curl. Oh, that's so hard. Hot. Okay, she did a 1-inch iron, heat protectant spray, working spray. What are your tips if this ever happens again? Yes. Okay. That is a great question. I'm going to come back to it in a second, okay, because that's a good one. And I think it's an important one. So don't worry, I promise I'm coming back to that. Okay, guys. So we've got 2 ponytails here. We have got some texture in here to pin to. So this is going to be our foundation. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pin these in the way that I want. And then the next thing I'm going to do is start to bring in these from the outside. So I wanted to show you how this looks from the back. So you can see I've got 2 ponytails here, and I've got the hair all around the edge. Now, I don't always have an exact plan of what I'm going to do when I start doing an updo. I just kind of have a vision of where I'm going. I create my map with my sectioning, and then I kind of let the hair speak for itself if the client is letting me have a little bit of liberty. So I'm going to take this first section and I'm going to use some texture spray. I also love spray wax. So if that's something that you really, really like or haven't used before, I think you're really, really going to like it. It's a little bit like wetter than a texture spray, which is lovely. So on hair that's really resistant, it's really, really helpful. Okay, so you can see how I've got some height on here and I've got my texture in my ponytail. I'm going to roll this in to kind of like what you would envision to be a French twist. So I'm taking the hair from the end and I'm loosely going to just roll it up and kind of see how that looks. So if I hold it in here and I kind of like how it looks, I'm going to leave it. If I don't like how it looks, I'm going to take it out and do it again. So with this one being really piecey, I really want to be able to see the texture. So just now how I just rolled it up, that's kind of what I was thinking what would be the best. But I'm feeling already that because I really want to show off this texture, I'm going to actually bun it a little bit because I think I'm going to get more texture that way. So by bunning it, I mean I'm wrapping it around the binder itself because I can piece it out a little bit more and I can see a little bit more of that texture that I want. So I'm just going to hold it in there and pin this section in. So again, this is a little bit freestyle. I'm not telling you like, okay, you need to exactly take this perfect section and pin it here. I'm saying this is kind of a technique and a style you can use on many different hair types, and it's going to look a little different on everybody. But that's where you got to use your creativity, right? Okay, so I'm putting this in. I really am thinking about that Hollywood glam, and I really want to give it the justice it deserves because Hollywood glam waves are a lot of work, and I want to answer that well. So I think I'm going to save it for the end because I want to really answer that well for you. Okay, so you can see how I have this kind of bunned up. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. So I will use a little bit of the texture spray, and then I'm going to roll this up. So what I really want to stress here is that you need to take care when you're doing this interior curl work by actually doing the work of getting the texture. What I mean by that is that any updo that you have that is going to be really textured and piecey, it needs to be fully textured all the way through, top to bottom. If you try to just take this like I just did and pull this in like a soft little quick bun on hair that has like no hairspray, no texture spray, no curl, nothing in it, it's not going to hold like this. It's going to be airy. You're going to see through it, not in like a cute way, and it's going to be floppy. And so by going through and doing all that texture curls before I got started, that's what allows me to create this kind of loose, messy, like thrown up looking bun, if that makes sense. If you don't take the time to do that, it's just not going to work as well. So I end up taking more time doing this, doing the curl part, than I actually do pinning it up often. All right, so you can see that I have this foundation. And now what I'm going to do is give it a little bit of hairspray. So I'm done with this. Now I'm going to hairspray it. So if I step back, I can see this is kind of forming a French twist-ish look. And so I hairspray it because I'm done with this part. I'm not touching it anymore. Now that I've done that, I'm going to start to bring up the rest of it and pin it into here. This is your awesome foundation. All this in here is going to really hold and anchor the rest of the hair that you pull up. If you don't have a good anchoring here, you have nothing to bring the rest of this hair to. So you really want to make sure this is anchored well. At this point, you can even have her shake her head a little bit and see if that works. Or, I mean, it will work. See if it holds, okay? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is kind of go section by section here. I'm going to start on this side, and I'm going to pull these in and pin it into the middle. One thing to note is you don't want to get these pieces really frizzy, right? So you can use some cream. I really like this Schwarzkopf Tame Wild. It's awesome. If you use a little bit on your fingers as you're working and pulling the hair up, it will really help from keeping it get frizzy as you work. So I'm going to carefully bring this all up, making sure. Okay, do I ever back comb that area too? Yeah, so I would back comb in here in this foundation area if her hair was more virgin and just more resistant. This hair here is like, you know, it's bleached, it's got tons of product in it, it's awesome, it's like perfect for updos. So you really probably will want to back comb if you have somebody who has really slippery hair, super thick hair. If you're just not feeling any grip in there, back comb this and then pull it into the ponytail. I skipped that step simply because her hair was kind of good to go on that. So yes, I would definitely recommend doing that in a lot of cases. Okay, so this hair coming in, I'm just going to twist it and I'm going to pull it out just slightly. So I'm holding it up, pulling it a little bit. And the reason that it's pulling nicely for me is because it already has the foundation of curls and texture spray, and I'm pushing it into that. So it's going into this foundation and we're kind of working our way down in a row. Because I want to make kind of this vertical French twist-ish look, that's why I'm going to go row by row. So if I didn't have curls in here, if I didn't have good product in here, this would not work very well. So I just want you to think about that when you watch, like, you know, those quick tutorial videos that people just kind of throw up hair and it looks so cute. You got to do a lot of prep to make that happen. Okay, let's make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, so I'm going up to the bottom now. I'm getting toward the nape of the neck and I'm continuing the same process. So I'm twisting and I'm just pulling it out loosely, and then I'm going to pin it into this foundation. If you find that you have hair that's falling as you do this, then what you want to do is take smaller sections. So I'll kind of pull this out of the way and clip it so you can see what I'm doing, but just take smaller sections. I'm taking about an inch. I'm pulling it out like this, and then I'm just twisting it, and I'm going to pull it up into the bottom. So I just want to make sure there's no gaps, right? I don't want to see any gaps in the hair. So I'm pushing this into the binder. I can feel my binder down here. And then I'll just kind of loosen this up a little bit so I have a nice soft profile in the back. I say binder. A lot of people say elastic. I try to tell myself to say elastic, but I've been saying binder since I could talk about hair. So it's really challenging for me to say anything else. Okay, I'm gonna switch over to this side for you guys. I also don't know if that's like a Midwestern thing or what, but okay, so you can see how I'm pulling this up and then softly twisting it. And I'm gonna loosen it a little bit and then pin it inside. So all these pins are going in towards, you can see here's the binder or elastic, if you will, right here. And that is what I'm bringing everything up to. So this is gonna kind of give that swept up look. And I'm gonna be honest, this is kind of like an awkward angle for me to be doing this, but you'll get the gist. So we're twisting. If you start to twist and you find that when you go to pull the hair out like this, it's not really working for you or it's not piecing out really nicely, go back through with more texture spray. That's what it's there for. So a lot of times with these ones, you just need a little more product. So I'm kind of finger combing through it. Again, if you're finding that the hair is flying away and this is frizzy, you want to use a smoothing cream as you work, and that will really help. Okay, one more over here, and then I'm going to switch back to the side that makes sense for me. All right, friends. So I know this is kind of wild, but you can see all the sides here are swept up on the bottom all the way around so that we have all the hair is now up and off her neck. So you can see how if you didn't have things sectioned, it might feel a little bit wild and you might feel like a little bit lost, but we're sectioned, so we know that it's good. Before moving on, I like to finish with flexible hold hairspray. And I'm not going to touch that anymore. So I can take this down now. And now we have to kind of work with these pieces. So because I want it all to kind of go in this direction, this is the way that I'm going to move the hair. So depending on how much hair is out, you might have someone with really thin hair. There might not be, you know, if you do something on someone's hair who's shorter, you're just going to have these little pieces to tuck in. So you're just going to turn them and tuck them into the bun that you already have. She has long hair, so I've got a lot to work with. So I have to be more creative and kind of use my, use my creativity to make this look cute. So I think what I'm going to do is take these pieces here and I'm going to kind of sweep them and pin them over. So they're just kind of loose here, and there's a lot of places I could put them. I could bring them down here. I could sweep them over. Actually, you know what? This looks kind of cute. So I think I'm going to do that instead. So that is what I do as I'm working with my bridesmaids, especially because a bridesmaid, you know, is not going to be as picky as a bride. Prom, something like that, like an event where they're just like, I want to look beautiful, make me look cute. You don't have to be as like painstakingly perfect as you do with a bride. So you can kind of look around and see where the hair wants to move and what makes the most sense. So for this one, I'm going to bring it back up. And part of the reason I'm doing that is because I see a little bit of a gap up here that I want to fill in. And so I really love to use the ends of hair to fill in the gaps, to hide bobby pins, that sort of thing. So it's looking kind of textured and cute, and you can, you know, kind of pull at it because it's got all that good prep in there, and that will make it come out even more. And now I just need to decide what I want to do with this piece. So I can pull it up, I can twist it in, pull it down. I think what I'm going to do is, I don't know, got to see what looks cute, you guys. These bobby pins are popping out a little bit. So if you find yourself that these pieces are starting to fall, take a pin, and I call this tunnel pinning. I hold the pin in the spot that I want it to go, and I lift up the hair and I push back toward where I came from. So that just gives it like an extra anchor without actually seeing the pin. So I grab the hair here, so this is in this twist, pull it up, and then push it back. And that just really anchors the hair without, you can still loosen it a little bit without actually showing anything. Okay, so for the sake of time, let's not be finicky. I'm just going to twist this in here and pin this guy right in. I know that doing this, I still have more hair from the sides to pull in and up. So what I'm thinking about as I'm doing this is how, like, you know, this, if I do a section back here that I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful, I love it, I want to make sure that I either don't cover it or just know that more hair is coming. So you kind of have to be like thinking and planning as you go, because you know that you have hair up here that needs to come to the back. So this is what we're working with in the back. It's got a French twist vibe, right? Because it's kind of long, but it's a little bit more soft and textury. So you guys, we have 2 sections left of this, and we have the front and then we have the very top. I'm going to do the very top next because I want this front to kind of drape and come back. So if I style this part first, this hair will have to lay over that, and I don't think that will achieve the look that I'm going for. So when you section, it really helps you kind of map out in your head what you're doing next as you work. So because I have this section here and I have the section in the front, I know that I want to kind of create, I want the hair to be pinned in tight on one side to kind of give that French twist look. If I don't do this first, then when I take this down, I'm going to be struggling of where to put all this hair. So that's why I'm going to do this first, so that I can use the sides to kind of create that look that I'm thinking of. So like I said in the very beginning, I prepped this before we started. So it has some curl in it. It has some bend already. And because this person wanted some height in the front, I want to make sure that I see some of the top of this from when she looks straight on. So that means I have to be up a little higher. Now, a rule of thumb is go higher. You can always take it down. It's really hard to get more volume when you've already pinned things in. So I always recommend erring on the side of big. It's easier to pull it down. So for the very top, one thing to keep in mind is you can always really lay out your sections before you do any kind of pinning. So I like to go through and curl as I work. So if this is in real time, I wouldn't have curled this yet. I would have done all this. This would have just been sectioned away. And now I would be taking the time to curl this section in order to look good with what I've already done. So for the sake of time, I've pre-curled it. But if I was doing this on an actual person, I would curl this as I go. So I'm just going to work with the curls that I already have. I did it in 2 rows, so I can kind of see my rows here. So that's what I'm sectioning out right now, is I'm just going to kind of take off this, skim off this very top section of curls. And then I've got just a little bit left, so I can pin in 2 layers. So that will give me some good volume. So I'm just going to put this in front of her face so I can get a little bit of back combing here. So one thing you can see right now is I'm creating a lot of frizz because I'm having to kind of like separate and mess with my curls. If you don't curl first and you curl section by section, you will not have this kind of frizz because you are curling neatly as you work. It's when you go back through like I'm doing right now and keep touching the hair, touching, that's when it starts to look messy, and that's when you really start to get frizz. So I'm just going to go through and give it a little bit of a back comb because I want a little grip in here. And I'm just going to lay this over where I want it to go. So I'm having it all come to the center because this Updo foundation is right here in the middle. I'm doing the same thing on this side. I'm going to bring it up and I'm just back combing just slightly. And I'm kind of turning the hair a little bit and just laying it over the top. So I'm laying it where I want it to go, and then I will come through and pin. I know that I won't see this part here because this section of hair is going to go over it. So I have a little wiggle room to give it some volume. So now that it's up here, I'm going to just pin this in at the base of this foundational French twist, if you will. So I'm going to go through and I'm just pushing down on the top. I'm not even grabbing all the hair. I can just push this top section into the top of the foundation that I created. And so that way you can kind of get the lift that you're looking for without really messing it up. So by laying it on top, you can get the height that you're looking for, and then you just put the little pins in on the top. And it doesn't have to be like big, flat, heavy pins. It's just kind of letting the hair be where you placed it without having to really like grab a ton of hair and lock it in. Okay, So you can see how I have my updo under here. This first section is on top. If I like how it looks, you kind of want to step around and make sure that the volume is right. So I see a little bit of a gap right here, but I know I'm going to be able to fix it with this hair when I bring it over, so that's okay. And I'm going to use some texture spray to kind of lock it in place because I still want to move it, but I want it to not be frizzy on me. So here is where you can start to decide, like, style-wise, what you're thinking. Do you want it to be more really textured? So if that's the case, then I'm probably going to want to do this in 2 sections and twist it in. Do you want to create even more height? Then you can pull it up here. So because my gal said she wanted it to be higher, I am not going to use it down here. I'm going to use this hair up here. So that's kind of the name of the game when you're doing updos, is you want to like go step by step and think about, okay, where will this hair that I have here be utilized best? Do I need to fill in a gap over here? Do I need to cover bobby pin? Do I need to create more height? By having the hair that you've sectioned out on top, you have a lot of flexibility to work with it and to use it in the ways that you need to create the look that you want. So because I want to bring this up, I'm going to bring this hair back so I can have even more hair to kind of pull up and make higher on the top. So again, I'm going to go through, this is already curled, and I'm just going to kind of lay it over the top how I want it to look. So it's a little tricky on her because, well, she's got some bumps in here. And the reason is because I haven't washed her hair in a while. So in a perfect world, I would want to create more volume right in this top section. And the way that I would do that, my curling iron's still on. Yes, so let me show you. What I would do is I'm going to take the section I'm going to curl, and I'm going to comb it straight up. You can like hear the crunch because of how much product she has. Okay, and I'm going to curl it by giving a good root boost. So I'm pulling the hair over, I'm kind of over directing it, wrapping it around. And then see how much nice volume you get here? If you go through and do this in this whole top, you'll get great volume. And then you can just use your fingers to separate it. And you're gonna get really, really good texture in this very top section. So all this little piecey, airy texture that you see, if you go painstakingly and curl section by section all on this top here, and then all you do is rake it back with your fingers, you're gonna get that good texture in there. So for the sake of time, I'm not doing that today, but that is what I would do to create texture. Right now, I'm just going to pin this into the foundation. All right, guys. Pinning it, pinning it. Feel free to ask me any more questions, and I promise I'll come back to that Hollywood Glam one because I really want to answer that. So these are just pinning straight down. And that gives me maximum softness, maximum volume, and I don't really have to worry about this falling out, right? Like this section of the hair isn't going to fall out. It's the underneath that's you have more risk of falling out, and so you don't have to do such harsh pinning on the very top. One more here. And then if you like it, keep running into something. Okay. You can kind of piece it out a little bit. If you like it, you're going to use hairspray. So you can kind of step back and give yourself the angle. She's got like a lot of lift right here, but I'm going to be pulling all this up, so it's not going to look so intense. Just pop this off so you can kind of see how each side. So you see it just kind of like swept up loose, and you can see, okay, we got a little uneven here, but you can see if you look straight on, you have a little texture, and you can imagine if I did that curling technique in the top, I'm going to get a lot more texture right there, which is exactly what I want. So this is what we're working with. We got our updo under here, and I'm going to pin this up in the top to create that height. So sometimes this part can be a little scary because this is where you sit with the mirror and you're like, okay, look at yourself and tell me what you like. I usually end up kind of doing a version of it first, loosely pinning it or just kind of holding it and asking them what they think rather than showing them how it looks in the process. So for this one, I'm going to kind of try a couple things. I'm going to take all of it and I'm going to first twist it and just see how this looks. So this is the thing, is you kind of just have to experiment a little bit and see how it's looking for you. But like I said before, if you create this great interior of all the hair being curled, when you pull it up like this, it will work for you and you'll be so happy with yourself. If I did not do this work, I'm not going to get this good texture like I just got in here. So I'll show you this again. This is all curled. It's all nice and textured in here. And I'm just going to turn it around itself. And I'm holding it loosely. And now I can kind of manipulate the curls with my fingers to kind of see how they want to lay. And there's not like a really, really specific technique here. The technique is getting good curls in here, and then softly using your fingers to kind of shape it in the way that you want. So this is shaping up to be how I want it. I really like how this is going. And so this is where I would show the bride or the bridesmaid in the mirror and kind of ask her if this is kind of the height that she's looking for. So before I even do anything else, I'm actually going to use my flexible hairspray. And you guys, this other product that I really recommend trying out, and maybe I'm like so late on it, but okay, it's Schwarzkopf, it's Silhouette, it's called Silhouette, and it's a pump spray. So it's basically like a liquid hairspray, which I feel like we've swung like, you know, aerosols came out and everyone's using aerosols. Okay, there's always been aerosol, but like that's kind of the gold standard for updos. But this really helps you be able to lock it in and get like a good shine and manipulate the hair really easily. I'm kind of new at using it, but I'm really loving it. I used it at my wedding this weekend and it was fantastic. So I was using it like holding the hair where I wanted it to go before I pinned and spraying it, and then using it to kind of get rid of the flyaways and manipulating it in the way I wanted to go before I pin. So it's worth trying. It's good. So now I have this swoop here. All the hair is coming to this side, so I'm going to pin it on the inside, and I'm just pushing down. So something that kind of irks me about tutorial videos that I see is I feel like I watch a video, I think it's awesome, I love the style and the look, and then I'm like, is that going to last all night? That is my number one question. Will this last all night? And I'm really big at making sure the foundation is really solid so that it really does last all night through pictures, through dancing, through all the things. So the rule of thumb for me is make your foundation super solid. That way, when you're doing this top section, like something really wispy like this can stay wispy and soft because you have created a great foundation. So I can be wispier, softer. I only use 2 pins to hold that in. And I'm going to kind of leave this out for now till I figure out what I want to do. I can do that because I have a good foundation. So I'm looking at from the side. I'm liking how it's holding up from the side. It's a little uneven from the top. But I know that I have extra hair on this side that I'm going to pull up and I can help kind of fill in that side. So that's what I'm going to do. So I've got the basic look of my updo down. I'm not going to leave this out, but I'm going to leave it out kind of for now till I figure out exactly what I want to do with it. And then I'm going to swoop these back. Okay, so I'm going to start with this side, my heavier side. I'm going to swoop that in, and then we're going to do the other side and see where we want it to go. So I've got to come to this side, my friends. Now, this mannequin hen has like 0 fringe, so it's kind of heavy. I'm going to divide it into 2 sections. I'm going to take the very top part, the part that's like right where a bang would be, and I'm going to do that last, and I'm going to do this part that's above her ear now. So if you want it to be a little bit fuller, do a little back combing interior here. I don't want it to be necessarily any fuller, but I do need more texture in here. So I'm going to be generous with the texture spray. And I'm going to pin this out of the way because I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. So I'm just going to use a little pin curl pin to kind of clip it up out of my way so I have some room to come in here and put this in. So I'm combing it lightly with my fingers back because I do want it to kind of have that French twist vibe. So that's why I want it to kind of come all in one sheath. So I'm going to hold it like this. And I really like to spray as I work because that kind of helps me know where I'm going. Ideally, you know, this would just stay here and it's not going to, but by spraying it here in place, I can kind of see how it's going to look before I do any pinning. And you can always go through and use like a alligator clip or a duckbill clip, like through and pin if it feels like, oh, I cut out for a second there. So I can always use this and hold this here and then pin it in if I need to. And that's just a little trick to help hold it like in the perfect place so you don't have to use your hands. So I'm putting this in kind of like a seam because I want to kind of have the French twist vibes over here. So I'll take this out. And then I just want to make sure I don't have any loose pieces. So I see that this is loose. I'm going to go through and pin that. And then you just want to make sure you like how it looks. So is it nice and swoopy? Is it just so I want it? Do I want to loosen it up a little bit more? You can use your fingers to kind of pull it out and then make sure that if you have any spots that need an extra pin in, go ahead and do that. So I've got that side. I work back and forth. So I did this side. I know I have this piece, but I'm going to go through now and do this side. So that is a way that I really make sure that I have nice even updos is by kind of working back and forth, back and forth. So we're going to do the same thing over here. I want this to be kind of swoopy. So I'm going to just section out the very top because I want this to kind of come back here. And I'm using my fingers. You can use a little bit of that Tame Wild, like I said earlier. That will help you to mitigate any frizz. And we're going to do texture spray. So I've already got the curls in here. You can see how it has a little bit of a wave to it. And if you need to do a little back combing on the interior to get it to stay where you want it to, you certainly can. I know her hair is going to stay where I want it to without doing that. So I'm just going to bring this around, kind of decide how I want to pin it here. I think I'm going to do 2 sections. So the other side kind of just went up nicely. And this one is looking like it wants to be in 2 sections. So that is something else that I think is helpful is if you kind of go with the flow of the hair rather than fighting against it, you will have greater success. So work with the hair that you have, which I know you don't always get to do that because on brides, you're really trying to replicate something that they want. But when you're working with the bridesmaid, you have a little more flexibility. So you can kind of work with the hair that you have in front of you, which is lovely. All right, guys, so I've got this side pinned up. I have this side pinned up. We've got these 2 pieces left. And I know that I still have to deal with this. And I know that I have to deal with this on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off this side. And then I'm going to go back through and finish off this side. So for this, I see that I've got a gap right here that I want to fill in. So that's kind of how I'm working. I look and see what the hair is telling me, what it needs. That sounds really woo-woo, but it works for me. So I can see that the curls that I created are kind of wanting to go in this direction. So that's why I am going to help them along. I'm going to give them a little back comb underneath. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to have a little bit more lift right here at the front of the hair. So I'm back combing here. And then I'm going to just use my pick to kind of guide these curls back and make them nice and kind of textured. So the pick comb is great because you can use it to help you get the shape that you want. You see how I'm just placing it in? Use a little hairspray, and you can use your fingers to kind of pull the hair out. And then I replace my comb with my finger, and then I can replace my finger with pins. And that is a great way to get some nice soft texture right in the front of the hair without it being too harsh. We're just going to leave this out and pretend like this is a cute fringe, okay? Even though it's like really 90s and way down there. Okay, I like this. This looks good. So now I'm going to finish with a little hairspray over here. Now to the other side. We're almost done on the home stretch. So again, we can pretend like we've got a little bit more of a fringe. I can leave out a little bit here. So I'll just leave out this nice hearty chunk. And I'm going to work with the curls that I created. All these curls are swept away from her face. I'm going to add a little more texture spray here. And if you need to add a little back combing, you can do that here to give a little bit more lift. And I'm going to just softly kind of pull it back and pull this out as I go. So this is where you want to, like, you know, look at her straight on and kind of see what's what's working for you. So if I'm looking straight on with you, I feel like, oh, you know what, this is going to feel flat compared to this. So I'll divide this in half. Like I said in the beginning, if you missed the very beginning, I'm kind of telling you my process. So this isn't like a step 1, step 2, step 3. This is kind of how I think as I'm doing updos. I just noticed another question. Are you using hairpins for that side or bobby pins? So I used both. I will use a hairpin to kind of get the shape that I want and then lock it in with a bobby pin. So when you're like, so let me show you. So let's take this piece here. We're gonna back home a little bit because I just want a little tiny bit of height here. And going back to this comb. So I would bring it in and kind of see where I want it to lay. Use my fingers to kind of pull it out. I'm holding it in here with my with the comb, and I can use the hairpins because they're going to slide in really nice. I had some. Here we go. Okay, so what I did there was I took a hairpin and I replaced it with the comb. Well, I had my finger here, and then I put the hairpins in, and then I put a bobby pin in to anchor it. So again, this isn't like a hard and fast rule, but if you put the hairpin in and you see that it starts to loosen up right away, you got to be like, no, hairpin isn't going to be enough. I almost always use at least one to make sure there's one hairpin kind of like bringing that in. But some people's hair, if it's really fine, if you've got all that good product in there and it's sticking, then you can get by with using hairpins. I don't use hairpins in any of the like anchoring in the back, but I will use it in these spots here that are just really soft, and you want to be able to kind of like pull out and hold loose. The other thing is I know that some of these ends are going to be pinned in here, so they're going to have another point of anchoring to the updo. So you know that the hairpin isn't the only thing that's holding it, if that makes sense. These are good questions, people. I appreciate that. Okay, so we'll spray that and then bring this piece out. So I'm going to turn her again. And just kind of see where we want that to go. And this piece, since we're not right on, it's not right on top here, I'm going to use a regular bobby pin. And they're called Stay Right, STA-RITE. I really love these bobby pins. I've been using them for years. You can get them at Sally's, you can get them online. I love them because they open really easily, and I open my bobby pins a lot. So different, people have different opinions on that, but that's what works for me. So you can see right here, this piece is going to be a little bit loose. I go through with that tunnel pinning technique. So I go in with the bobby pin, I turn it towards the front of the face, and then I push forward. And that just gives this an extra anchor so it's not flopping around. Okay, so now we're kind of all in the detailing. I know I have to fill in this piece right here, and I have to take care of my ends back here. So I'm going to spray this front. And the other thing you want to do here is kind of before you finish up, like give her the full once over, make sure she's looking good. Okay, so I'm going to pull up this here because I want to fill in this side. So I knew that I had this side to fill in. So I'm turning, like the curls are going in this direction. So that's why I'm deciding to take this and turn it into this section. If the curls are going in the other direction, I'd probably do something different. But because the curls are already working in this direction, that's what I'm going to do. I'm pinning that, and I can kind of check from the front and see, oh yeah, that kind of filled that in. I'm using my fingers to kind of manipulate it. As I'm doing that, I realize that I need another pin. And so I'm going to go through and just put another anchoring in there to make sure it's good. I don't want to see any pins, so I'm kind of working on hiding those as I go. And now I really want to create that kind of more French twisty look. So I want to kind of swoop this over and swoop this over. So I don't have, like a real legit term for you, but I'm going to twist this and bring it over. And again, I'm twisting this because the curls are kind of working in this direction. So I'm going to pull it out as I go. So I sort of like, I go section by section and I see what the hair wants to do before I pin it. So I'm holding it really loosely. And I'm going to pin it in over on this side. And I'm grabbing the hair. So I like to grab the hair first, and then I go into the interior. And that way I for sure don't see any bobby pins. I like that, so I'm going to spray that. And then I've got a little bit over here yet. And I'm looking at the back to see what I want to do with it. So I've got a couple pins up here that I can see, so I for sure need to cover those. So you have two options here. You can finish it, and then you can remove these bobby pins and put a few extra in the interior, or you can use hair to cover them. So these bobby pins, I could take this hair here and spin it around. So I don't know if you can see those very closely, but right here, there's two bobby pins that I can see. So I can take this section of hair and turn it around on itself. And that will help hide these pins. And then I can kind of pin these ends more on the interior. And so that hides that. So that's one option. The other option is once I get this part pinned in, I can remove these bobby pins because I know I have some more anchors down here. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'll show you how I would do that because I just like how this looks. I see this kind of flowing and I think this will look really pretty. So I don't want to divide it up. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so I'm going to hairspray. She said it looked beautiful. I appreciate that. Jennifer and I used to work together way back in the day. Well, she was much more successful in the salon than I was as a newbie. Okay, so I'm going to just take this and pin this into the interior. And then I'm just going to tuck up these ends because you could leave them out, but this is pretty rat-taily to me. Some people are into that. I'm not one of them. So I think I'm just going to bring them up and kind of hide them away. And that is sometimes what you got to do with the ends of hair is just find a spot in the updo that you can get rid of them. Especially on like a blonde like this who's got really treated hair, you know, those ends aren't going to be nice. I like this one though, so we'll leave that one out. Okay, so you see how I've got these two pins here. What I'm going to do is, if I love it, I love it. I'm going to hairspray it so we're solid. I'm going to go through and do my tunnel pinning technique that I just told you guys about. So I'm going to grab the hair here, push forward. That's just going to anchor. Give these an extra anchor before I remove these pins. So a little bit extra. And now I can remove the one. And you know what? I'll show you another technique that's kind of cool. So I remove that one and it's going to stay put. It's going to be fine. I'm not worried about this one coming out because it's pinned down here. It's got a lot of hairspray and it's anchored in other things, so I'm not worried about it. This one, something that I do to hide pins, if I feel like it's really got to stay there, is I just move the hair that's next to it over. So there's a pin here. There's some hair right here. I'm going to use my tail comb to move this hair over. And if it doesn't cover it, I'm going to try the other side. Oh, look at that. The other side works. So try the hair on each side, pull it up, and it totally covered it. So now I'm just using my comb here, and I'm going to lock it in with hairspray. And that covered that pin. You guys, so fun. So at this point now, because we have done our great prep work, this is where you can kind of work and pull at it a little bit in places if you need to. But overall, you can see we've kind of got like the French twisty vibe, but it's like a little bit messy and a little bit undone, right? But like soft and swept, and it's still workable. So if you feel like, oh gosh, I need to pull this out a little bit, you know, I need to pin this in, this can be pinned in. You could pin this halfway in to have some pieces laying down. It's really workable to do a lot of tweaking how you want. And then when you look straight on, you can see she's got just that little bit of height that she requested. So you guys, I hope that was helpful. If you have questions about this one, let me know, but I'm going to talk through the question about Hollywood waves. So Hollywood waves, tricky, right? Let me just make sure I answer it all correctly. Okay, sorry, I just want to look at it. So it looks like you set the hair and you used all the prep, all the things. So one thing, I have a couple thoughts on this. One thing that I always do, I don't use on Hollywood Glam, I don't use heat protectant. And I think I don't work in a salon. I only do updos. And so I'm not super concerned about using heat protectant because I'm not so concerned about damaging the hair for one event. Okay. So I think a lot of times the people who work in salons are really considering the hair itself. And I think you probably should, but because I'm like really focused on the one event, I don't do that. So I use a combination of texture spray and hairspray. So I'm going hairspray, combing, hairspray, combing again, and then wrapping it. And when I wrap the hair, I'm twisting it as I wrap. So this is kind of I don't know if I'm able to like fully answer it in the way that I want to, but hopefully this will help a little bit. I'm twisting it as I wrap. The twist is really going to get that bend, and then pinning it in, like you said, and one more spritz of hairspray. So it's that layering of the hairspray and combing it out that really does help lock it in. And then you're going to keep that all the way through. So if you are worried about this, sometimes what you can do is try the bottom row first. So try the bottom row, go through and do your technique. And if you take one out and you see that it's like zero hold at all, then try doing a smaller section. So taking that section, dividing it in half, hairspray, comb, and wrap it up again, pin it again, and see if having a smaller amount of hair helps. Some people's hair, it's just like not going to happen. And if that's the case, you either have two options. One, you can use extensions, and extensions can kind of help provide an anchor for the real hair. So if you're going every other real hair and every other extensions, those extensions will hold that bend and it will kind of help the real hair lay over it to be able to have something to stick to and hold on to. So that's one thing. The other thing is just being honest and being like, this is not going to work for your hair type. So I don't know the specific situation, if this was like wedding day and you're like, oh my gosh, or if this is a trial. But if that happened to me on a trial and it just was not holding, then I would recommend not doing that at the wedding day. Another tip is if you're doing that in the trial run, it's not working, you can find out what they did for prep before they came to you. So you could, prom day, okay. So you're probably like, oh, prom, it's not that serious, honey. that was rude, mean. It's serious, but it's not a bride. So at least we're there. You can kind of like do other things. So prom, that's tricky because yeah, you can't do any trials. So I guess I would recommend telling your prom people, or just telling anyone who's coming into the salon and you don't get to have any sort of consult beforehand, to have them blow dry their hair out with like a mousse or something before they come to see you. So at least you have that good prep. And basically I would just refer to that first thing that I said. Do your first row, maybe a second row. If you take it out and you find that it's not working, try dividing it in half with that comb hairspray technique that I talked about. And if it's still not working, then pivot and say, we need to do something different because it's just not going to work. So I feel like I would rather, yeah, to put it up. Absolutely. So annoying, right? After spending like so long doing the whole deal. I tend to test out people on their bottom rows of hair when I don't get to do a trial run. So if I've never met them, if I've never worked with their hair before, I will take it out and kind of give myself a little sneak peek, or I will just do the technique and let it go and not pin it and see how it holds. If it immediately falls, then I'll try holding it longer. If it immediately falls again, it's like, all right, your hair is not doing this. So test it out on the bottom and try a couple of things, see if it works. So that's my biggest recommendations for that, just off the cuff. So I hope that's helpful. I'm actually planning to create a really in-depth tutorial for Hollywood Glam Waves. And so that's on my list of to-dos. I just need that 7-month-old baby of mine to have some chill. So I have some extra time to do that. But that is something that I really want to do because I feel like there's a lot of different issues that can go wrong with that. And I'd like to help people learn how to do those really well. Okay. If you have any more questions, like I said, I will continue to come back in here and answer. I was hoping to get this done in an hour and we have 4 minutes to spare. So thank you guys for joining me who came live. And if you want more, I've been posting every week on Sundays on YouTube at the Updo Collective. So you can check out YouTube. They're just like quicker tips on like one specific thing. I've been doing a curl series lately, so there's more over there. On my website, I've got the 5 essential steps to start every Updo. That's a freebie. And I've got a couple of courses as well, but I love to hear feedback on what you're looking for and what you need help with. Feel free to email me, theupdocollective@gmail.com. I don't even think I introduced myself. My name is Heidi. You can also comment here, and I'll be back in the Facebook group and keep this posted. But thank you guys so much for joining me. This was really fun. I'll post some pictures of this as well. And if you think of anything else, please go ahead and put in the comments, and I will be back to answer more questions. But yeah, that's all, friends. Have a good night, and thank you for coming. Okay, bye. I'm glad you loved it. Thanks. I'm still reading the comments. Okay, gotta go. Bye. Thanks.